What up, perps? Kid Copious, back in effect. Purple State Party. You know what we're trying to do here? We're trying to rep America, the center, common sense, freedom, and standing with Israel. You know, that's kind of how is that a controversial position nowadays? Well, a lot of it is because the left has run out of good ideas, and now they just want to support terrorists and religious groups that basically believe the exact opposite of the progressives. I don't freaking get it, but let's dissect it. We'll get this thing started and popping. All right, so in the last election, you know, people like myself were warning you that, hey, you might not really like Trump, but he was doing a good job. And look at the alternative. And this is from political cartoonist Bronco from back in 2021. We won't be needing this anymore as he undoes Trump's policies, because that's what he ran on. He ran on, I'm going to undo everything Trump did, and I'm going to further the far left agenda. And I think if we're being honest, I think the 4 years that we had under Trump were a lot better than the years we've had now under Biden. And I think the world would probably agree with that because, well, you know, Ukraine, Gaza, you know, Israel, you know, China, Yemen, Iran, all the bad actors felt empowered when this man took office. And for good reason. Because the liberals, the lefts, the progressive people, they once served a purpose, but they've run out of good ideas. And now they are going to get consumed by bad ideas and covering for those bad ideas, excusing those, contextualizing. But they've run out of good ideas. You know, I didn't believe in gay marriage, but I listened to what the Democrats, the left, were saying about why they deserve those rights. And I changed my mind. I thought abortion was abhorrent, but by listening to the other side, I realized that that needs to be an option and that women deserve to have the freedom to choose that. Gay people, lesbians, adopting, another thing where I thought, that's not a good idea. But I listened to the reasons that were put forth as to why it was a good idea, and I changed my mind. Weed was a good one, too. You know, I was already on board with that. But you look at what happened with that. We got the medical marijuana. That was a great thing. In some states, we've now just legalized it. And weed is pretty harmless compared to alcohol, right? So they got the weed across, a victory for the progressives. And I congratulate them on that. I'm high as shit off of fucking dispensary weed right now. So yeah, good job. But once that was taken care of, they moved on to magic mushrooms, fentanyl, meth, heroin. And when those plans backfired, they just doubled down on it. You see, that's the problem that we have right now with the left, is they're spending so much time doubling down and trying to defend their bad choices that they're not fixing the mistake they made. And that's pretty horrible. You look at this one. California proposes another minimum wage increase so people can afford products made more expensive by previous minimum wage increase. I'm talking about primarily the McDonald's workers getting $20 an hour. How is that fair to the people who aren't making that? How is that fair to the people that I work with who make less than $20 an hour testing fire alarms? Something that seems pretty important. Where's the governor for them? No, because the union wanted McDonald's workers and Carl's Jr. and Sonic. They wanted those people to make more money because that's the important thing. An industry that is essentially, like, for lack of a better word, poisoning Americans. I mean, I eat fast food. I'm not on some anti-fast food ramp, but let's call it what it is, you know. It is poor. I mean, for your health, you know. I smoke. I know smoking is bad. I shouldn't do it. I don't want people to smoke. But $2 a pack? That was the tax they put on us. Every pack of cigarettes, $2. And where's that money going? Into their pockets, into their pet projects. As we go through this show, we're going to show examples of where The left has just gone overboard now with their bad ideas and not admitting that they were wrong. I mean, when I started this, what did I say? I didn't believe that gay people had the right to get married. But I listened to the other side and realized the error of my thinking. And I changed my mind and supported it. Do they do that? No. Because they're brainwashed and they're lied to. When the media is helping to cover up some of these dumb decisions, how can you expect people to change their mind if they never get to hear the opposing view, if they live in an echo chamber? I mean, here's one that really just kind of puts forth the whole running out of ideas. The American Ornithological Society announced Wednesday that they will change the English names of birds that are named after people in an effort to address past wrongs and increase public engagement. A lot of past wrongs were not wrong at the time. People who owned slaves were not wrong at the time. Is slavery wrong? Sure. Of course it is. But it wasn't at the time. It wasn't a crime. These people were not doing things that, the same thing with Columbus. Oh, Columbus was a genocidal maniac. Well, all explorers were. You landed somewhere and, that's what happened. That's the way things were done. We realize the error of that, but has that changed? No. Look at the Crimea. Ukraine said, hey, we own the Crimea. Russia said, not anymore. Still happens. But changing the names of birds? Because we've run out of actual things to do. For the progressives, at least. I mean, right now, the ACLU is fighting, I believe, in New York to make it legal to knowingly put people at risk of AIDS. Because you are supposed to notify people if you have AIDS before you have sex with them. Weird that we had to put that into a law, but we put it into a law. And now they want to undo it. Oh, it's unfair. Well, who's it unfair to? The person with AIDS or the person who might just get AIDS? Because if you are going around knowingly having AIDS and having unprotected sex and even having sex because no protection is 100%, they're saying that they shouldn't have to tell people? Look at the Leah Thomas thing. I mean, fine. Okay, so some guy after a year says, I'm of transitioning, says, I'm a woman, and he gets to compete against much smaller women. I mean, look at Leah Thomas. That was a full-grown man who had gone through puberty and had all those advantages. But not only was Leah allowed to compete against the women, she got to use the locker room. And when the girls complained about it, they were told that they needed counseling. So they just stripped away women's rights. They allow them to self-identify. They are putting trans females into prisons if the man simply says, I'm a woman. And in school bathrooms, why is that an issue? Because they've run out of ideas. And they don't want to promote the idea that trans men can get pregnant. No, it has to be men can get pregnant. Because they have to make it such that people on the other side can't agree with it. Just so you constantly keep this us versus them. It's very simple with what the left does. Everybody is either an oppressor or the oppressed. I am white. I am the oppressor. I have a non-white wife. So therefore, I'm a colonizer. No matter what I do, if I don't toe the left line, then I am the enemy. I am the oppressor. That's the kind of shit that they're doing. It's okay to hate Christians and Jews, but all of a sudden they're pro-Muslim, a religion that's one of the most intolerant. Kids' sexuality, wondering if a 5-year-old who was born a boy but is really a woman. Why are we discussing those kind of things? Why is that the important part? Because they've run out of ideas. This is just the next step. Back when I was young, boys did not get earrings. And if you got tattoos, oh, look out, you're probably not getting a job. But now tattoos, man, that's, most people don't really care. The earrings have gotten giant, nose piercings, lip piercings, all of that, leveling up. And that's what the Progressive Party has done. But they've reached a level where all the good work is done, but they still have a group. They still make money. So they got to find a new target. And right now, the target seems to be Jews. Jews are the oppressors. That's, that defines craziness right there. I mean, come on. Yeah, the Jews are the bad guys now. And you're going to support Muslims. I mean, Jews don't kill gays. Jews don't subjugate their women. Muslims do. But you're all for that because you might still get votes out of them. And who was it? Here's a quick quiz. Who was it that in a town in Michigan removed pride flags from all the public buildings? What was it, MAGA Republicans? Was it concerned parents? Or was it the Muslim City Council? It was the Muslim City Council. But they're a group that you can label as oppressed and therefore say, hey, we're the party of the oppressed over here on the left. We don't look at the fact that we just kind of create oppression. We'll see more of that as we go along. This just changing the words and stuff. I mean, look at this. Pro-Palestinian protester lights Israeli flag in New York City, tramples flyers for missing Israelis. Oh, but you know what? The Palestinians are the oppressed. No, they're not. They have their own area, but they elected Hamas, and Hamas used it as a base. Hamas started the war. Vice President Harris blasted for tone-deaf post announcing anti-Islamophobia. The United States government has a plan to tackle Islamophobia, Islamic phobia, or however you pronounce that damn word. These are the most phobic people on the planet. While the UN is calling in Israel for its apartheid, all the Middle Eastern countries around Israel practice apartheid. Most of them outlaw homosexuality. Most of them subjugate their women. In a lot of countries, women can't get an education anymore. But we're going to protect those people from the kind of visceral hate that they lob onto other groups. Because, you've run out of ideas. Pro-Palestine, right after that attack, says something. Whether people want to believe it or not. It's a timing issue, folks. To wrap it up and kind of say, oh, we're pro-Palestine because they're oppressed by Israel. No, Israel was not in Gaza oppressing them. Hamas was oppressing them. And, sorry, there really is no Palestine. Britain owned Palestine after World War II. They turned it over to the Jews and made it Israel. But we're going to go ahead and say that it's okay to support those people. Look at this. Hurling insults, Molotov cocktails. Jews live in fear now as anti-Semitism rages. Well, what's the government? No, we're going to worry about the Muslims. The Jews aren't trying to kill the Muslims. Sorry, that's not the way it is. In Russia, they stormed a plane that came in from Tel Aviv looking for the Jews. I'm guessing most of those people, since it was a heavily Muslim area, were Muslim. Pro-Palestinian protesters in Barcelona occupied a hotel owned by an Israeli businessman. In Berlin, Germany now, they scrawled Star of David on the doors of homes and apartment buildings where the Jews live. Where have we seen that before? You see that? Where have we seen that before? Because the people who did that were either on the left or they were Muslim. Sorry. But I don't think that the average German citizen would hurl Molotov cocktails at synagogues and mark the homes of Jews. Not with their history. So who's doing all this? And these are the very same people that the left says are the oppressed. Right. Talking about a man here who owns a delicatessen. He had to remove, I can't pronounce the word, and I won't because I don't want to. I think it's masseuse. I can't. I haven't heard it enough, or it's not in my memory banks. Very important. I know what it looks like. I know I can recognize it when I see it. I just can't pronounce the dang thing. But his rabbi told him to take it down and move it inside because being a Jew right now is dangerous. This is 1930s Germany all over again. And the left defends the people behind this. And they do. They will come out and they will condemn the violence, but they will contextualize and they will explain to you why this hatred exists and why we should be okay with it. They're defending it. I'm sorry, they are. Their own people are saying it. Another place, we're just going to move off of that subject for a second. Another place where the left has really run out of ideas is this whole global warming, global climate change. We're doing our part here in the United States and in other countries, some countries. But it's all a waste if others don't slow the fuck down. All right? Global climate change, global, the entire globe. One person in California not using a straw and driving an electric vehicle isn't going to make a change on a global level. And the big concern that I have is that the reason why Barack Obama bought a house on the coast and John Kerry flies around in private jets is because they know the truth. They know that one wobble of the earth is much more powerful than anything we can do. And right now, the earth is in a certain pattern. And they've monetized it. And that's why it doesn't seem like they're doing much. Gavin Newsom's over there licking the boots of China as they violate human rights on a daily basis. Licking their boots. Oh, we need to talk about climate change. We need to talk about climate change. And they're laughing at him, partly because he ran over a kid here. Newsom shows solidarity with Biden by also falling on face in front of world leaders. But they were laughing at him before. China laughs at us. They're selling us all this green shit, but they're not doing anything about it. And they've said it flat out. We're not even going to think about it until 2030. So good luck. I don't understand why we need to bankrupt our entire system when the rest of the world isn't playing along. But they've run out of bad ideas. And that's the idea that they need to run with right now. Oh, we are the party that will save the planet. Bullshit. If I thought Democrats could save the planet, I would vote for them. And I'm not going to vote for them. And look, California carbon emissions increased in 2022 despite ambitious reduction goals. Not much, only 2 million tons, but it's not down. It's up. Even up 1 pound is not down. So this great expense that we are now having to absorb, this rewriting of how we're going to live our society, has not done anything. Maybe because we've got it as low as we can get it and still remain sustainable. Their plan is not going to work for electric vehicles, okay? It's just not. The amount of power that's needed. There was a video that I saw where a guy was talking about the 5,000 logging trucks in British Columbia. Just logging trucks. And how they had just built a dam that would make 1 gigawatt of power per day. But those 5,000 trucks would require somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 5 gigawatts a day. Where's all that power coming from? And that's just the logging trucks. We did produce, 28% of California's power through wind and solar. It's a very ineffective way. It's very subjected to the environmental changes. You don't make much solar energy when it's cloudy. Wind turbines need wind, but a Goldilocks zone of it. But we were still receiving 38% of our electricity from natural gas and coal. Nuclear only at 9%. There's a way to boost that number, Nuclear, it doesn't matter if the sun's shining or not. It doesn't matter if the winds are blowing. Nuclear is nuclear. It just keeps producing electricity. Hydroelectric, 10%, but we're not allowed to use that. More on that later. But that was a little over 10%. So we have these other solutions that, almost 20% of our power, nuclear and hydroelectric, but we don't expand that because the left is afraid of nuclear. And the left has decried that hydroelectric's bad for the environment. Wind is killing whales. Solar kills birds all the time and comes at a great environmental cost. Just the toxicity of these products when they're retired. But left has run out of ideas. But instead of fixing the mistakes they've made, they double down on them. Here's a great example of that. We were able to, here in California, over the series of downpours, collect about 8.5 billion gallons of water behind 14 dams, easing flooding and building up valuable stores of water. But we lost an estimated tens of billions, estimated at tens of billions of gallons, just back out into the ocean. Why? The era of great dam building passed long ago, owing largely to the multi-fronted environmental wars California is fighting. The left will not allow us to build reservoirs. This state is run by the left. They have to listen to the people on the left. So no reservoirs, no dams. All of that. Tens of billions. We didn't even collect 10 billion. We wasted all of that. The left is out of ideas. And they're refusing to see the error of their way. And the worst part is they then turn around and say that anybody who is not completely aligned with the left is a whack job and closed-minded. Yet, as we've already talked about, I'm not on their side, and I'm not closed-minded. We need reservoirs. We need hydroelectric. We need nuclear if you want to pull off your plan. You're not going to magically pull off your plan without doing some things that you disagree with. The left shine a light on bad cops, police corruption, police brutality. But let's be honest, the last 3 big protest ones were spun to be those things. They involved people fighting with the police officers, people who were involved when suspects opened fire, suspects who were fighting for a police officer's gun, the dude who grabbed a taser and tried to run off. They were culpable. At one point, yes, you had a lot of it, and you still do. I'm not saying it's completely vanished, but the true numbers show that there has been a decline in police brutality. There has been a decline in racial profiling and things like that. We are getting better, but that's one of their dog whistles, so they have to keep it around. Their response to the pandemic, complete failure. It was just absolutely brutal on kids. We don't even know the lasting effect that their policies will have on kids and business. And it was all fruitless. It was all fruitless. And since it was fruitless, lies were told. The truth, if not silenced, was bent and twisted. Anytime COVID was listed on a death certificate, which can include more than one cause of death, they reported it as a COVID death. They purposely pumped up numbers. They purposely twisted narratives and silenced people who were trying to raise opposition. Not every bit of opposition was correct. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is people need to have the right to discuss those things. Keep in mind, Twitter was banning actual doctors from voicing their opinions because their policy failed. And instead of admitting it failed or trying to make a course correction, they went into hyperspeed trying to defend it, trying to cover it up, trying to spin it, contextualize it. One of the things they contextualized the hell out of was Republicans and concerned parents at school board meetings wanting to know what the hell's going on with the curriculum. Those people were labeled terrorists. But the terrorists are labeled as the oppressed. Does that make any sense? That's where they're at right now. If there's something that contradicts that, I would love to see it. I would love for it to not be true. Joe Biden alluded to MAGA Republicans being terrorists. Concerned parents were arrested. They were watched. They were labeled as hate groups. But the actual terrorists, they get a pass. And this is further evidence of such passes. Joe Biden says there should be a pause in the fighting in Gaza to enable the release of hostages. Well, Gaza, why not just Hamas surrender? Get to more of that later, but why doesn't Hamas just surrender then? Why don't we call for that? Because the pause only benefits Hamas. It does. I mean, I'm sorry, but the brutal truth of it is that we can't expect to get those hostages back. I hope we do, but but also coming from Biden's side right here, Tlaib, she came out and she echoed the sentiment from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which is a load of bullshit. It's code for eradicating the state of Israel. I mean, the left says that if I want a tighter border, I'm a racist xenophobe. But she could say something that is actually used by terrorists, and they defend it. It's aspirational call for freedom and human rights and peaceful coexistence. Well, it's the Palestinian people. It's the Muslims in that area that don't want to coexist. If you're an Arab and you want to coexist, you can move to Israel and you can coexist. You can become a judge. You could serve in the military. You can be a member of the parliament, a doctor, whatever you want to be. If you believe that Jews need to be eradicated, you're not living in Israel. But Tlaib gets a pass on it. She gets a pass on it. Nobody wants to do anything about it. But Jesse Waters says something, and the White House condemns it as a sickening attack. Tlaib calling for the death of Israel and Jews, not a problem. But Jesse Waters saying, well, that went too far. Because he said right here, if you're an Arab American in this country and you rip down posters of Jewish hostages, American hostages, no, somebody is going to get punched in the face. And that's unacceptable. Punching somebody in the face is unacceptable, but repeating a phrase that alludes to pushing Israel into the ocean and destroying all of them, that's fine. That's fine. They've run out of ideas, so they have to keep up with this kind of BS rhetoric. And Walters also brought up a really interesting point right here, talking about the West and Western technology have created the Middle East. We made them rich. We got that oil out of the ground. Our military protects all those oil shipments flying around the world, making them rich. We fund their military. We respect their kings. We kill their terrorists. Okay, but we've had it. Yeah. Our nation has a whole generation of kids out standing with Palestine when Palestine, Gaza, were cheering when the terrorists struck the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. But the White House comes out and says these hateful lies about Arabs and the Muslim world highlight the urgency of President Biden's work to ensure hate has no safe harbor in America, and why he committed to the first national anti-Islamophobia strategy in our history. And the people who voted for Biden are out ripping down posters of kidnapped Israelis and stomping on Israeli flags. Right. They're also saying just stop oil. So I really don't understand, doesn't anybody see these conflicting viewpoints? The Muslims are not progressive. The Muslims are rich off of oil. But they're your poster child now. And where are the lies? Where are the lies? We fund their military. We protect their oil shipments. They owe us. And instead of being grateful, they fucking hate us. And when some assholes fly planes into the World Trade Center, those are the fucking countries that cheer. It is. And look, they've already, Bahrain, part of the Abraham Accords, severing all economic ties with Israel. Just like Joe Biden said, he's going to figure out a way to undo everything Trump did that was good. Right? And it doesn't stop there. Here's Yemen. They've officially announced its entry into the Battle of the Flood. And they've launched missiles and drones into occupied Palestine. Occupied by Hamas. Oh, and speaking of Hamas, Hamas says they will repeat the attacks until Israel's destroyed. And they don't. Look, he even uses that quote, "We are victims of the occupation. Therefore, nobody should blame us for the things we do." Who are you occupied by? You elected Hamas. Hamas killed off all political rivals, seized control of Gaza, launched attacks into Israel. Israel retaliated. How are you occupied? You're occupied by Hamas. You're occupied by the very people that you work for, dude. Israel's a country that has no place on our land. Right. There you go. Quote, "We must teach Israel a lesson, and we will do it again and again." So we are a nation of martyrs, and we are proud to sacrifice martyrs. And we're supposed to have a ceasefire with people that believe that? The UN's calling for a ceasefire. It's, what the hell? What the absolute hell is going on here? Israel was attacked, and the UN and the United States is doing everything they can to get them to stop, to allow Hamas to rebuild, to regroup. How dare these people? How dare the UN say shit like that? The UN knows better than this. They have stood by and watched for 15 years. Israel has not had a presence inside of Gaza. It is not occupying it because Hamas has total control of the Gaza Strip. And for 15 years, the UN has stood by and watched as Hamas stole billions in international aid dollars, built their headquarters inside of hospitals, tortured, murdered political opponents, silenced free speech, launched attacks on Israeli citizens from Palestinian neighborhoods. And the UN says that we need a ceasefire. We need to be on the side of Hamas because a ceasefire only benefits Hamas. Don't allow them to get that twisted in your head. Just because there's a ceasefire does not mean that the hostages are coming back. And the media continues to play along. This is talking about the Jabalia refugee camp. And somebody from the UN right there, the UN's Office of High Commission for Human Rights, said, given the high number of civilian casualties and the scale of the destruction following Israeli airstrikes on Jabalia refugee camp, we have shown serious concerns that this is a disproportionate attacks that could amount to war crimes. Okay. Do we need the UN anymore, really, folks? When they're going to say kind of shit like that? I want to look at something here. That's the destruction now of this refugee camp. This was in here. It's a city. It's a city where Hamas commanders were seeking refuge. Israel said, yeah, they went after it. They killed the commander who was responsible for the October 7th attack. And they also killed a large number of militants and damaged tunnel infrastructure underneath the buildings. It damaged Hamas's command and control. It was a town being used by Hamas. And Western media wants to paint this as Israel blowing up a refugee camp. No matter how you justify calling it a refugee camp, it's only being called that as propaganda. Western media is doing the work of Hamas's propaganda bureau by trying to paint Israel as the bad guy. They take death tolls from the Gaza Health Ministry. Right. See? 9,000 people have been killed by Israeli strikes. Oh, okay. But as you can see, it's not been possible for journalists to independently verify from either side. Who are you defending? So I found this from a website called Forward. My friends on the left want a ceasefire. Why aren't they demanding that Hamas surrender instead? There are a few interesting points in here. This one, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton recently said that a ceasefire would be a gift to Hamas. Say, even amongst all those idiots, Hillary Clinton is the voice of reason. Holy shit. Where were these people's voices? As they are talking about Palestinian lives matter, Hamas set them up as human shields, used a fortune in international aid to fund weapons to use against Israel rather than humanitarian systems. Why aren't they protesting Hamas? If you don't want to be on Israel's side, why aren't you protesting Hamas? And the fact that it's just been constantly put on Israel's back to stop the fighting, even though they didn't start it. American leftists have minimized Israeli losses, dehumanized Israelis, endorsed violence, and inflamed the conflict with outlandish rhetoric for years. There was no occupation, but they kept saying there was. They kept calling everything apartheid. Gaza was an open-air prison. Fine. If Gaza was an open-air prison, who created Hamas? The left is meant to prioritize justice, equality, and dignity. You cannot be the left if you endorse authoritarianism, terrorism, and brutality. And that's what Hamas is. There should be no space on the left for those attempting to justify, excuse, or contextualize Hamas's attack on Israel, period. Coming out and having pro-Palestinian rallies days after what happened on the 7th. Who in the F do you think you're appealing to? Whose side are you on? We're going to wrap it up. Thomas Sowell, I love to quote this guy. Reality doesn't go away when it is ignored. And that's what I'm asking of the left. You've changed my mind about a lot of important things. Being a Democrat at one point in my life and listening to Democrats later in my life has made me a better person. But you are now ignoring reality. Letting criminals out of jail in the name of equity is not working. Legalizing homelessness and bums and junkies on the streets and refusing to use gun enhancements and refusing to arrest people for drug offenses is not working. California is a prime example of how it doesn't work. There is nothing working about the open border. There is nothing working in California with the way we collect water or produce power. It's all dreams. And like Soul reminds you, reality doesn't go away when it's ignored or when it's contextualized or covered up or lied about or twisted or manipulated or reinforced by a media that doesn't really give a shit about what happens to any of the people out there. They just want the fucking clicks. I would love some clicks. So if you like and subscribe, maybe we can multiply. I'm Kid Copious. I'm Purple State Party, and so are you. Love one another, and always remember to dance it out.